For glory's sake! War!
In Bible prophecy, we have what is called day-to-year prophecy, which means that one day is equivalent to 1 year. In Numbers chapter 14, after the number of the days in which he searched the land, even 40 days, each day for a year, shall he bear your iniquities, even 40 years, and ye shall know my breach of promise. Ezekiel chapter 4, and when thou hast accomplished them, lie again on thy right side, and thou shalt bear the iniquity of the house of Judah 40 days. I have appointed thee each day for a year. This gives us an idea about the years of tribulation, which is one day equivalent to 1 year. In Daniel chapter 9, and he, which is the Antichrist, shall confirm the covenant. According to the verse, the Antichrist will confirm the covenant. In other words, before the rapture, there will be an agreement, and Antichrist will be the one who strengthens it. And this deal about peace and safety is about Israel, that the Antichrist will promise Israel peace and safety. With many for 1 week. This covenant is a covenant of the Antichrist in a week to Israel. We know that 1 week has 7 days. In the day-to-year prophecy, that 1 day is 1 year. In other words, 7 days are equivalent to 7 years. Our time today is the church age. It will be finished by the return of Christ. The return of Christ will be in the clouds. The reason for his coming down is so that all who repented and accepted Christ will be taken up. And it's called the rapture. The reason for the rapture is so that all who repented and accepted him will not be included in his wrath, which is the tribulation. Before the rapture, they will plan peace and safety for Israel. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, for yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. So this verse talks about the return of Christ, which is the rapture. In verse 3, for when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. This peace and safety have happened now, and they are trying that the Islamic countries in the Middle East to have peace in Israel, so that they can reach safety in the Middle East. And this peace and safety that is happening now is the Abraham Accords. Even though we don't know Antichrist yet, he is the one behind this program. After the rapture, during the tribulation, Antichrist will strengthen this agreement about peace and safety in Israel, and this agreement for 7 years. After the 7 years of tribulation is the second coming of Christ, that he will land on earth. In Matthew chapter 24, immediately after the tribulation, of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. In verse 30, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. The second coming of Christ will be accompanied by angels. Matthew chapter 24 says, and he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. And all the raptured will come down with Christ. In Revelation chapter 19, and I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True. In verse 14, and the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. One of the reasons that Christ will come down at this time is to fight against all those who attack Israel, because it is attacked by all the countries of the whole world. And number 2 is to arrest the Antichrist. In Revelation chapter 19, and I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse, and against his army. In verse 20, and the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worship his image. The beast here is Antichrist. He will be arrested by Christ along with the false prophet. Let's continue with Daniel chapter 9. And in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. In the middle of the 7 years, Antichrist will stop the sacrifice and the offering of the sacrifice in a third temple by entering the temple, and will declare that he is God and he will be worshipped. That we find in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. And because of this event, he established the abomination, because he forbade the Jews to operate the third temple, and the Jews must worship him, because he is God. This is what is explained in Daniel chapter 9 and verse 27. And for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Because of the overspreading of abominations, resulting the desolations. In Israel, their year has 360 days because their calendar is a lunar calendar that follows the cycle of the moon. So that we can put in clarification, this side we will call the first half, and this side is the second half, and the middle is mid-trib. If the 7 years were cut in half because of the abomination that happened in the mid-trib, the first half will have 3.5 years, and the second half will have 3.5 years. If a Jewish year has 360 days, meaning 3.5 years have 1260 days. How long are the desolations? We can read it in Daniel chapter 12. And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Because of the abomination that happened in mid-trib, this resulted in desolations, and the desolations lasted for 1290 days. In other words, after the second coming of Christ, there are still 30 days left until the end of the desolations. In the next verse, in verse 12, blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,305 days. In the same context, blessed are those who wait and reach the 1335 days, because Christ will reign in this world for 1,000 years, which we will talk about in a few days. Meaning, this verse gives us an idea that there will be another 45 days before the millennial kingdom. In other words, after the second coming of Christ, there will be an extra 75 days before the millennial kingdom. That in the extra 30 days, there will be the judgment of the nations. And in the extra 45 days, there will be the construction of Ezekiel's temple. We will talk about them in another video in this series of Bible prophecy. Christians, don't be complacent, because the cry has started in the Middle East about peace and safety, which is the peace and safety that the Antichrist will bring in the 7 years of tribulation to Israel. But it is already written in the Bible that in the middle of the 7 years of tribulation, he will fail the peace treaty by setting up an abomination that he will demand from Israel that he is the God to be worshipped. This is the reason that the Jews will run to the mountain and the temple will be desolate. Christians, you must monitor this Abraham Accord now, because the Antichrist will come out of that peace program to bring a peace agreement. Because before the rapture happens, we will know who he is. That we can see in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. My friend, this is the timeline of our tribulation, and it will have more be added as we will talk about the 7 seals, which we will talk about in the next video.